This is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good morning. We begin with major developments in the fight against coronavirus. Sweeping reforms have come into effect overnight. Everyone coming into the country will be forced to self-isolate, effective immediately. Public gatherings of more than 500 people are now banned. Cruise ships are also being turned away from our ports. Victoria is just 30 minutes away from entering a state of emergency. And there's more turmoil on our financial markets, the ASX plunging on the opening bell. For more, let's bring in Tom Saker, who's at Sydney Airport this morning. Tom, it's day one of those strict new guidelines. How's the atmosphere there this morning?
Well, Anne, it has been an unusually quiet morning here at the Sydney International Terminal. Obviously far less flights coming in, but the bulk of passengers we've spoken to this morning don't seem too fazed by the 2-week self-isolation period they're about to undergo. The only people who are concerned here are actually the cab drivers who are having to take many of these passengers home. They say they're putting themselves at much greater risk, but certainly the bulk of passengers who've landed here this morning quite happy to cooperate with the 2-week self-isolation period that began this morning and will last indefinitely, even if it does disrupt their plans and holidays. We spoke to a couple of them this morning. Let's hear what they had to say.
We had all these flight changes and, I got blocked out of the Philippines where my kids are.
I think the decision's a good one. It's keeping everyone safe and it's minimising the spread of the disease.
How have things been handled this morning?
Really well. We had to move really quick. You can imagine yesterday afternoon, so we had to obviously engage with all the airlines, all the cruise line industry, and of course all the cargo ship industry. So there's a heck of a lot of work being done overnight.
Tom, what happens to anyone who doesn't observe these new guidelines?
Well, and the federal government is encouraging a dob in a mate system, and the penalties currently in place for disobeying public health orders vary from state to state. I'll run you through them now. In Victoria, it's a fine of $6,400, Tasmania $8,400, Queensland over $13,000, South Australia a $25,000 fine, New South Wales it's an $11,000 fine and 6 months jail. Western Australia is imposing the strictest penalties with a $50,000 fine and 12 months jail. So certainly the advice is best to stay inside and stay away from the public for the full 2 weeks, Anne.
Tom Saker reporting. Thank you very much, Tom. Let's go to some breaking news now. Our share market has plunged once again on the opening bell. For more, we're joined by Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton. Good morning, Gemma. How much have we lost?
Well, Anne, the market opened 7% lower, but has managed to recoup a little of that initial sell-off, and it's now trading around 4.42% down. Webjet has lost another 18% today. It's now nearly 70% down over the past year. And markets around the world were really spooked by the US Central Bank, that's the Fed, cutting interest rates to near zero overnight, and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand pushing through an emergency 0.75% rate cut.
And Gemma, how's the Australian dollar doing this morning?
Well, it bounced slightly when the Fed announced its rate cut, but has now fallen back to around 61.7 US cents, hurt by very strong risk-off sentiment and by the growing expectations that our Reserve Bank here in Australia will soon push through an emergency rate cut of its own.
Gemma Acton with the latest on our financial markets. Thank you very much, Gemma. Well, not all politicians will return to Canberra next week as part of new safety measures to stop the coronavirus from spreading. Live to Olivia Leeming in Canberra. Good morning, Olivia. There's concern that Parliament House could become a hotspot for the virus.
Yeah, with some 5,000 people crowding into the building during sitting weeks, it just can no longer be business as usual. MPs will have to return to Canberra next week to pass the government's $17 billion stimulus package to shield the economy from the impact of the virus. But this won't include all politicians, with a quorum of just 30 lower house MPs and 19 senators needed to pass the legislation. And the 4-day sitting week is likely to be shortened, while Parliament's midwinter charity ball held for politicians, journalists and corporate Australia has been postponed until the crisis passes.
Olivia, there'll also be new constraints on nursing home visits.
Yes, Scott Morrison flagging new protections for the elderly by limiting the number of visits to nursing homes, with the final details on those restrictions to be decided tomorrow night based on advice from medical experts when Scott Morrison meets with the state premiers. Now, the UK has gone to the extreme, moving to force anyone aged over 70 to self-isolate for up to 4 months, with aged care facilities also facing lockdown to protect the most vulnerable in the community. But Scott Morrison says that will not apply to older Australians at this stage.
For the more elderly, the more vulnerable in the community, then a full self-isolation is not being recommended, but obviously being more careful than the rest of the population, not having as many people around, limiting those contacts, but they don't have to cut off.
He says any new measures affecting the elderly will consider the sensitivities around this issue whilst balancing the health risks. Anne?
All right, Olivia Leeming joining us live from Canberra. Thank you very much, Olivia. We have some more breaking news this morning. A Sydney school has been closed over a coronavirus scare. Peter Fegan joins us now. Peter, where is this school? What's happened there?
And we're at St Christopher's at Panania. So what has happened on Thursday, a teacher's advisor that had come to speak to 40 teachers in total from around the area. That meeting took place here at St Christopher's at Panania, has tested positive. They've then contacted the principal here at this school on Saturday. Immediately that decision was made by the principal to close the school. He sent out letters to parents on the application compass. He has said that no one has showed up here this morning, and which is a very positive thing. There are cleaners about to start cleaning this school. Out of those 40 teachers, Anne, all of them are now in isolation. As I said, they're from a number of schools around the area, 10 from this school alone, so to replace them would be nearly impossible. But just quickly, speaking with Tony Farley from he's the Executive Director of Catholic Schools, he says that these school closures are inevitable, he needs more guidance from the government, and that they are ready to start teaching online. Anne?
Peter Fegan reporting live there from Sydney. Thank you, Peter. Major supermarkets are setting aside special shopping hours for vulnerable members of our community. It'll help them avoid the chaos caused by panic buying customers spooked by the virus crisis. David Boywood has more.
Well, this was the bright idea of management here at this IGA in Altona in Melbourne's West. As of tomorrow morning, this store will open its doors an hour early from 6 a.m. to allow the most vulnerable in our community to do their shopping hassle-free. Now, the move was prompted in part by those frenzied and incredibly physical scenes in our shopping centres in the past few weeks as shoppers try to get their hands on those staples, namely toilet paper. People will need either a disability support card or a senior citizens card to enter early. Store management says it's designed to make life easier for those doing it toughest.
Panic shopping doesn't allow me to shop, and the crowds are unfair because I can't see. So if you can't see and there's crowds in your way, you can't shop.
The poor staff at the front end have copped lots of abuse, but we're doing the best we can, and we're telling them that, sharing's caring. We've got limits on everything, and we're just doing what we can.
Earlier this morning, Woolworths announced it would be following suit. The move has been met with praise online. Pressure now mounting on our other major supermarket chains, Coles and Aldi, to follow the lead of this small IGA here in Melbourne's West.
France and Spain are now under lockdown, with residents ordered to stay inside as health officials try to contain the virus. Sarah Greenodge has more from the World Health Organization's headquarters in Switzerland. Sarah, some of the strictest public enforcement orders seen in generations are now in place.
Well, in Italy, 368 people have lost their lives in a single day from this virus as the death toll reaches over 1,800. There is now almost 25,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases, and they're saying if the country continues at this rate, the toll could surpass China's by the end of the week. In Spain, the streets and roads are deserted. They have followed Italy into this complete lockdown. Police are now using drones to blare out messages urging people to stay inside their homes. Ireland has announced that all pubs and clubs will be closed indefinitely, and the freedom of movement that Europeans enjoy so much is slowly disappearing as more and more countries either partially or fully lock down their borders. Germany is the latest country to do so. Meanwhile, in the UK, they are saying that anyone aged over 70 will likely have to self-isolate for the next 4 months. The royal family is taking its own precautions. The Queen has been moved to Windsor Castle because there are simply too many staff and visitors at Buckingham Palace.
Thanks, Sarah. There's havoc at airports across the US, with the government set to ramp up its border lockdown in the coming hours. Paul Caddick has more from New York. Paul, President Trump has declared today a national day of prayer.
Good morning, Ed. President Trump calling on Americans to pray for the people affected by the virus, but also for the national response effort. Not a lot of outward signs of that happening, with a lot of Sunday church services cancelled and being live streamed. There are concerns about the national response, especially when you see images like these at major American airports. Americans returning home from overseas getting caught in big delays because they have to be screened for virus symptoms. Now, as health officials warn that we shouldn't be in large crowds, they've been forced to stay in large crowds for hours waiting for those symptom checks. Now, today, President Trump has also tried to get Americans to stop panic buying, stop stockpiling, after a conference call with some of the country's big grocery stores, supermarkets and retailers, trying to reassure people that the food supply is fine.
You don't have to buy so much. Take it easy. Just relax. People are going in and they're buying more. I remember, I guess during the conversation, Doug of Walmart said that they're buying more than they buy at Christmas. Relax. We're doing great.
Schools are now closed in 24 states. They're also closed in New York City from this week. In Ohio, restaurants have been ordered to close. And in Miami, they've ordered beaches closed after 5 p.m, again to stop crowds gathering. And today we've also seen an emergency move from the Federal Reserve Bank here in the US. They have cut interest rates in this country down to near zero, between 0 and 0.25%, an emergency move to try and protect the economy from the economic fallout of the coronavirus ahead of Wall Street opening its week tomorrow. From New York, it's back to you.
Paul Caddick reporting from New York. Next in 7 News, tourist hubs deserted. Incredible pictures coming in from around the world as the virus crisis sees usually bustling landmarks emptied. And a group of Aussies in isolation in the US, why they are being accused of breaking coronavirus protocol. That's next. Welcome back. Around the world, coronavirus crisis is causing some truly amazing scenes. This was Times Square in New York earlier today. On a Sunday afternoon, it's usually one of the busiest places on the planet. But with Manhattan enacting strict social distancing guidelines, the normally bustling tourist hub was almost deserted overnight. 10 Australians remain in isolation in Aspen, Colorado, after testing positive to the disease. Ash Mullaney is there. Ash, there are fears they may have ignored protocols.
Good morning. Yes, Colorado health authorities are now investigating whether 2 of these Australians have defied isolation orders to go skiing yesterday. They're among a group of 13 Aussies in quarantine, 10 who have tested positive for the coronavirus. We understand they include a businessman from Melbourne, Andrew Abercrombie, who hosted a cocktail party here in Aspen where a number of Australians fell ill with the coronavirus. Aspen is now among dozens of popular ski resorts in North America ordered to shut its ski operations over coronavirus fears, impacting not only the tourist workers here, Aussies visiting these ski towns too.
We're here, there's nothing else we can do and just enjoy our holiday, just keep on living, I suppose.
I guess like everyone, it just sort of made it real, brought it home that we're all susceptible to it, I guess.
Some of these resorts will be closed for a week to start with, others closed indefinitely. This is having a huge impact on the tourism industry. And at this stage, we just don't know the full scale and scope of the coronavirus crisis in the US, with America still lagging behind many other countries with testing.
Thank you, Ash. In other news, dramatic video shows the moment a truck selling late-night fast food exploded in the US. Witnesses say they heard a bang before orange flames shot up metres into the air. One person was taken to hospital, suffering only minor injuries. Residents of Madrid have stood on their balconies to clap and cheer doctors and healthcare workers. It comes after a campaign launched on social media to show appreciation after the Spanish government declared a state of emergency over the coronavirus. People have been ordered to stay at home for 2 weeks unless they have to buy food or medicine or go to work or hospital. Spain has become the countries most affected by the coronavirus in Europe after Italy. Next in 7 News Sport with Jackie Felgate. And breaking news on the AFL, one of the game's most high-profile players in doubt. And the NRL is dealt another blow as calls increase for the immediate suspension of the season.
Good morning. There are breaking developments in the AFL with the start of the season in serious doubt. Chief AFL reporter Mark Stevens joins us live from Collingwood headquarters. Steve-O, what's the latest?
Well, Jackie, this story moving very quickly. Now a massive dark cloud hanging over the AFL. I'll start with Scott Pendlebury, the captain of Collingwood. He's basically at home in quarantine after suffering flu-like symptoms. We broke this story a little bit earlier on 7 News. But basically, he had the symptoms on Friday and has been away from the club all weekend and not at training again today. The best trainer at the footy club is at home as a precaution at this stage. So massive development there, just 4 days out from Collingwood's first game. The players had a light run here, milling around then outside a cafe here at Collingwood, which is strange scenes indeed. A very, very strange vibe around the footy club and the footy world at the moment. There will be several phone hookups today to make a call potentially on the season going ahead, but the mood seems to be shifting. One senior official told me half an hour ago, in fact, it had shifted massively in the past 12 hours. Even Channel 7 commentator and Richmond great Matty Richardson's been involved on Twitter. He's adamant that footy won't go ahead this weekend. Players are growing more and more uncomfortable. This is a massive story. We'll certainly know more by later today, but that phone hookup with the players on around 7:30 tonight, Jackie. So AFL footy, as we know it, round one is in severe doubt.
Yeah, thank you very much for the update. Mark Stevens reporting there. The NRL season is facing a significant hurdle with the New Zealand Warriors refusing to commit to staying in Australia indefinitely. It comes amid calls for the season to be suspended, including from Storm captain Cameron Smith.
This thing's bigger than rugby league. If we make a decision to suspend the comp for a couple of weeks, then I think it just gives everyone an opportunity to actually sum up the situation a little bit better.
Last night, West started their season in the best possible fashion against the Dragons in Wollongong. Veteran Benji Marshall was back to his best, setting up 2 tries and scoring one himself in the Tigers' 24-14 win. Football Federation Australia has announced the rest of the regular A-League season and W-League Grand Final will continue behind closed doors. The FFA says all levels of the sport will continue in Australia under certain conditions, but they will review the situation for the A-League finals. Melbourne Victory and Wellington Phoenix will undergo a 14-day quarantine period when they return from New Zealand. Their round 24 and 25 games will be rescheduled, with the Phoenix to play the rest of their season in Australia. The Pakistan Super League is one of the few sporting competitions going ahead amid the coronavirus crisis, and Brisbane Heat captain Chris Lynn is making history after hitting Lahore's first ever century.
He's gone huge, and it's maximum for Chris Lynn.
Lynn's unbeaten 113 secured a 9-wicket win over Multan, guiding Lahore to their first ever final series. But the Aussie won't be there for it, announcing on Instagram he's returning back home because of the coronavirus outbreak. And the famous Alaskan Trail Sled Dog Race is pushing on as well. Now in its 8th day, it covers more than 1,500 kilometres through the Alaskan wilderness. The race is expected to finish on Tuesday or Wednesday when the last musher crosses the finish line. And a massive day in sport. We're going to keep you up to date throughout the afternoon on all the developments in the AFL.
Thank you very much, Jackie. And next in 7's Morning News, the national weather forecast. An overseas fashion designer has provided some colour during the coronavirus crisis, creating bedazzled accessories. However, the masks, which feature hundreds of jewels, haven't, of course, been approved for medical use and won't stop the disease. The designer has given them away as gifts to influencers and celebrities who've worn them and encouraged others to stay safe through their social media platforms. Taking a look at the weather now, onshore winds along eastern New South Wales and Queensland are causing a few light showers and the odd storm. A broad trough over the north is also causing a few showers and a couple of storms. Settled conditions in South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania with hot northeasterly winds due to a high in the south. Around the capitals, Brisbane partly cloudy, 27 degrees. Sydney a shower or two and 23. Canberra partly cloudy, 20 degrees. Melbourne sunny and 26. Hobart partly cloudy, 20 degrees expected. Adelaide mostly sunny, a warm 28 degrees. Perth a possible shower and 26. Darwin partly cloudy and 34 degrees today. And that's 7 News to Now. We'll keep you up to date right throughout the day. Our next bulletin is at 4 p.m. I'm Ann Sanders. Thanks for your company. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.